veteran community is a culture.
Mm-hmm.
So under that alone should fall under like a protection group, because we are a culture. We don't associate ourselves with the rest of the American culture. We are that 1% that goes out and defends the country. So even then, we're a culture within ourselves, and then even then, within our own branches, it's a subculture. And if you use that as a tool, then I mean that's what it comes down to. Use the veteran as it is a culture, and they have to protect every single culture. Same with like the Latinos, the blacks, the Asians, the Native Americans, and all those other groups. They're protected under that law.
Yeah.
So same thing same thing with the veteran. The veteran is the veteran community is a culture. We don't talk like everyone. We don't conduct ourselves, and we're also we're non-traditional students too.
Yeah.
So we fall under a couple of different categories.
So I want to ask a few questions.
Sure.
One would be, first and foremost, congratulations on graduating.
Thank you.
Yeah. What'd you major in?
I majored in psychology and Central American Studies.
Now, taking that back to the word legacy that's come up a couple times, what is your legacy? And is it using those 2 bachelors, or are you on a new path now?
I think to be honest with you, I'm using the bachelor's as a stepping stone, really, because that's not my main goal. My main goal is pretty much to be able to help. In other words, I don't want another veteran to go through anything that we went through. Like the first time around, where they're lost, they don't have a community where they could relate to, or they don't feel like that they're back home. Because I think that's the biggest problem, is that everyone, I love the fact that everyone uses the word, we need to transition them to be civilians. And this is where I go back to the black, the Latino, the LGBT community. We never ask these communities to transition.
Yep.
It's almost like no, you don't do that, you know? So why should a veteran community even transition? Why should we go back to being something that we fought so hard to get away from? Not as a negative connotation, but I mean as an identity. We became this new identity. They're like, so why do we need to transition back to something we worked so hard to become?
That's interesting. Yeah.
So what I always tell people is like, it's not a transitioning phase. It's an adapting phase, an acclimatizing to your new environment, and that's something that we've done so many times. You know, we've acclimatized to different cultures, different areas, different war zones. We adapt to our new surroundings, but we don't change. It's not changing. We don't transition. We just I take that back. Not change. But I mean, I say we change to be able to become better within that area. You know, we acclimatize to environments, and so why should? That's why I get pissed off when I always hear the word transition, because I'm like, you don't ask any other community to transition to do anything else. You would never ask that same question to the LGBT community. We need you to transition to be straight. We won't ask the same thing to the black community, that we need you to be white. Or same with and vice versa across the board. You know. We tell them, all right, you're a culture, and that's how we should. That's the reason why I always say we should treat the veteran community as that.
Yeah.
It is a culture. We are a different identity.
Yeah.
But as for what I'm trying to do is more like, I want to advocate that, you know what, this is the home you fought for. This is something that you wanted to protect. You volunteered to become, the protectors of this nation. So why? They're like, why wouldn't you feel like you're back at home, and why should you transition to becoming the identity you fought so hard to change?
Yeah.
You know, and so that's kind of what I want to create. I want to create that environment where it's okay to be a veteran in the United States.
So, what's your call to action?
I think it's more to like have more veterans to step up to the plate, like especially the educated, to step up for like your brothers and sisters are coming behind you, because that's kind of like what the military teaches us. Like that's our culture. Like whatever they give you, it might be shitty, but at the same time, like you need to give it back. better than you got it. And that's kind of like it's always been. That's how the military's always been,
Yeah.
They're like, we need to start thinking that way again. They're like, whatever they give us, we need to turn it around and make it better. And that's kind of where I want every veteran to step up and be like, if you're in an environment, how do I make it better?
How do I make it better? Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Versus just following the norm of just being like complacent.
Well, we hear it in the VRC, mm-hmm. Guys come in there bitching, like you said earlier. Mm-hmm. You have all the problems in the world mm-hmm. and no solutions because you choose to stay on one side instead mm-hmm. of the other. Yeah.
Yeah, because everyone can complain all day. It doesn't mean, do you want to do something to change it? Yeah. So like, well, to them, a lot of them will be like, well, that's not my chair. That's not my problem. Unfortunately, that is your chair.
Yeah.
And that is your problem.
Yeah.
That should be everyone's problem.
Yeah. Especially if you are acknowledging that it's a problem.
Yes.
Yeah. So what would you tell vets who are struggling to find themselves today?
To understand that, I think it's normal to feel that way in the beginning because you have all these different aspects of your life, and we haven't even dwelled into your basic culture where you come from. Just mm-hmm. Because even the culture where you come from wants you to change back to who you are, and that shouldn't be and it's normal to feel out of place. It's just when you struggle, I feel like we need to struggle because this is what we've been trained to be. We are trained to struggle and come out best on top.
Mm-hmm.
And once you understand that the struggle is there for a reason, you could come out so much stronger once you understand that, you know what, this is another obstacle that I could overcome, and it's gonna be hard in the beginning, but once you get through it, that there is light at the end of the tunnel. And mm-hmm. guess what? Now you get to help out those that might be going through the same thing that you went through. And that's gonna make everything worse so much more, 10 times so much more better in your life.
Yeah.
Because at the end of the days, like you look back and you're like, you know what? Like, I might have gone through this, but guess what? Now I know that the guy behind me doesn't have to go through this.
Yeah. Yeah.
And they could be more successful, and they could become stronger, and they could build that community even stronger.
Yeah.
Because guess what? Eventually, we're all gonna get old. And we're gonna be those freaking guys at the Legion or the VFWs or whatever, or the DAV or wherever you're
some of us already are, right? Yeah. Manny.
And even there's like where we're just gonna be able to like where we're gonna have to we're gonna have to like have someone help us out later on.
Yeah.
And at least this way, when they come in, they won't have to deal with the stuff that we're dealing with now.
Yeah.
Instead, now they could deal with bigger issues at the other end.
Yeah.
Little fights, little victories help.
Small victories.
Yes.
What is the what is the best advice for transitioning service members or adapting or acclimatizing service members? What's the best advice you have for guys getting out the service? For our military family getting out of the service?
Understand that everyone has a story.
Yeah.
Like every veteran has a story. It might not be your story, but every veteran has a story. But understand that at one point or another, we were all family. Whether we were family in the past, present, or future, we're still family. It doesn't matter what war we fought in. We went through the same ideologies of like, one idea that I think bonds every single person, and that's every single veteran, is that we didn't run from whatever what the United States asked us to do. We pushed forward, and so that being said, they're like, just gotta be patient and understand that they're like, okay, how do I? You're gonna be pissed off at people. That's normal. That's okay to be pissed off. It's okay to be, as long as you understand that you have to be able to learn to eventually learn to become stronger. Mm-hmm. And kind of even look back at yourself. It's all like, when am I going to take responsibility for my own feelings? How do I change? Like, and that's kind of what it came down to me, was like, I was mad, I was angry, I was pissed off at the world, but eventually I realized that there's another mission for me, and that I need to be able to use that energy that I have for frustration for something bigger and better. I might not get the results I might get all the time, but guess what? As long as I'm pushing it, I know that I'm doing what I'm supposed to make this world a little better. And if I'm able to put my own, and that's the thing, though, like, and that's what stops us. I think it's like a lot of times our frustrations will stop us, and that's something that I always tell people, that like sometimes when you're stuck, you need to learn to look at your life and realize, like, what am I doing that's keeping me stuck here, and how do I make myself stronger?
Yeah. And I know that feeling, man. Being stuck. I think it's one of those things that we inherently feel just because of the environments that we find ourselves in, and sometimes feeling lonely. And yeah, I get that big time. So if you could tell Recruit Guevara one thing to prep, if you could tell him one thing to prep for today, yeah, what would that be?
Oh man, I was definitely, if I was to go back to Recruit Guevara, I would tell him that there's gonna be hard days. You're gonna freaking hate life. But guess what? It's all like, at the end, it's gonna be worthwhile, because you're the one that makes. You're gonna decide whether you're gonna have a good experience or bad experience. And I would tell that recruits, are like, as long as you have your heart in it, everything else doesn't matter, whether people are trying to fuck you over or not. As long as your heart's in it, everything else doesn't matter.
Yeah, that's 1,000%. That's truth, all up and down the board. So, are there any topics you would like to speak about that we may not have covered? Do you think?
I don't know. It's a.
I know you're a man of many many moods.
I think it's I don't know. Going back to, I guess, reacquiring yourself, coming back also. I think it's also finding identities that you find yourself like really close to. Like a good example, I know a lot of times I've known veterans that will stay away from the veteran community because that's an identity they might be already exhausted with. And I know a lot of veterans that also join like the LGBT community, and that's fine because a lot of times your experiences might able to help out another subgroup. Maybe you're like, okay, there's enough. Maybe you might say, well, in this section of there's a lot. I could always go back to the veterans. That's not a problem, but they're pretty much well taken care of for whatever reason. But there's always another group that might need your help. And I think that's the biggest thing, is that we forget that there's also more to us. We're very different identities. Like, there's a lot of people that have families that are like, okay, maybe I want to focus more on, how do I make my child stronger? Do I join a group for like, or do I want to be part of like, helping kids to get, maybe they're single and they're like, well, I remember growing up as an underprivileged kid. Also focus on that. Not everything necessarily has to be veteran related, and that's the reason why I double major, because at the same time I didn't understand where a lot of my family background came from. Like, I didn't know the issues that they were dealing with. Like, I didn't understand their history, or why the way they were, or the way they are, or and why are they even here to begin with. And a lot of times, once you understand that history, you realize that there's other groups that are going through even harder struggles. And it's okay, because that means that you found a mission. And I think at the end of it, that's what I always go back to, that same ideology. When you join the military, you have a mission. Your mission is to become whatever service member you are, a Marine, sailor, airman, whatever, soldier, coastie. And then after that, they send you out to go do different missions. You need to go do, take the objective and
humanitarian missions,
or whatever they send you out to. And then once you get out, you forget that you got to continue that mindset that there's always going to be a new mission for you. And that you can't just sit back and if you're feeling depressed and